Hello everyone, welcome back again. My name is Jesse, and in this wonderful tutorial, we're trying to see how to save our machine learning models as an API, right? So we'll be using a very nice framework called FastAPI, which is a high performance framework that allows us to be able to build APIs with simplicity. So let's see how to work with it. So first of all, let's install it. So to install it, just going to go with pip install FastAPI, right? And then FastAPI requires you to use an ASGI server, which is called uvicorn or hypercorn. So it's going to be pip install FastAPI and then uvicorn, right? These are the main requirements to install or to work with FastAPI. Perfect. So let's move on. I'm just going to create my file, which is going to be create a folder called ML app. Then I'll cd into ML app. Then we create our first file called app.py. Then let's open our file and then let's start writing some code. Okay, so first of all, FastAPI is very powerful. It combines the best of all the various frameworks that we have already, right? As from Flask to Swagger to all of these things, very interesting into one package, making it quite interesting. So now let's see how to work with it. So the basic stuff is that just going to import uvicorn. So import uvicorn, which is going to be the one we'll be using to save. Right, to be using uvicorn to save our app. That's the first thing. Then we need to go it from FastAPI, import FastAPI, right? The last one is supposed to be in capitals, right? That is how to work with it. Then the next thing that we have to initialize our app. So let's initialize our app, add our app. Then we're going to create it like this. So it's going to be FastAPI. Perfect. So you can, there are two options. You can just put debug, it's got to true here, or you can omit it, right? So any of them is going to work perfectly. So let's go without it first. That is a basic idea. Now we need to be able to initialize or create our if main. So if main, then it's going to go with our simple stuff, which is going to be our uvicorn.run. Then I'm going to pass in the app. So the app here is referring to this app here, right? And then it's going to take the next argument, which is going to be the host, which is going to be our local host, which is going to be 127.0.0.1, right? And then the next one is going to take is our port, right? So the port that you want to listen to. So by default, let's go with ports, which is going to be port 8000, right? That is the basic idea. So we have created something very simple and basic. So we'll be running it from this particular option. Now let's create our first route. So just like Flask, right? This one we also use decorators. We're going to create our first decorator. It's going to be our app.get. So we can have, it's an API, so it supports all the REST API verbs, right? So you can just go with app.get, then give your route, right? So this is how to create a simple route. So this is going to be our route. Then it's going to be like this, something very basic. Then from here, I'm just going to define my function. So let's call it as something very basic. So you can call it as index. And then you just do whatever. So let's say return. You can put it in, you can just return something like, let's say our test is going to be hello API lovers, right? API borders, something like this, something very basic, right? So that is how to work with it. So you can just go with this particular function and it's going to work, or you can just put the asynchronous option there also, right? So any of them is going to work. Now let's run this simple app that you have created. So to run it, just going to go back to our location. There are two main ways of running it. The first option is just to go with Python 3, then the particular name of the app, which is app.py. Then it's going to open it and run it because we are using this particular option, because we are using the if main, right? This if main, so it allows us to be able to run this particular app well without giving us any errors. So it's going to run, give us the particular port that is running on. So let's copy this particular port. I'll copy this port and then we'll paste it here. Perfect. So that is the first method of running our app, right, using Python. So it's going to run it and it's going to give us our test, which was the test we found here, right? Hello API borders. Very interesting and very simple. But the disadvantage of running it in this way is that if I change this one to API borders to something like, let's say API lovers, and I save it, it's going to identify the change, right? But if I go with this option, see that it's still not showing, right? It's not showing the stuff until I close it. So that is why we have to use the next option of running it. So let's close this one, then let's run it with the next option, which is going to be uvicorn, right? Then you're going to supply some other stuff. So the argument you'll be using is that you're going to go in it. So the argument is going to be our app. So this app here is referring to this particular file, right? The app is referring to this particular file here. That's the name of the file. Then the next option is going to be our app here. This referring to this particular app, right? So in case this file was named as main, this is going to be called main, right? It's going to be main, right? But here it is named as app. So it's going to be app, then the app again, which is referring to this particular app here, app word here. That is the basic idea. Then I'll just go with that's reload. So this is the only thing that we need to enable us to run with uvicorn, and then it's going to run so that even if you make changes, it's still going to see the changes and reload, right? That's the basic idea. So let's go on this with this particular option. Perfect. So it's running on this particular port. So if I come back here, right, and I refresh it again, to refresh it, now you're going to see our lavets there, right? So even I can change this one to the old one. Let's say API masters, something like this, API masters. If I save it and I refresh it, it's going to show the masters there, right? It's going to detect the change here, and then we can, if I refresh it back again, it's going to give us the result, right? That is the basic idea. So we have the lavets here. Perfect. So if I refresh it, it's that it's coming, right? Perfect. So that is the basic idea. So it's going to identify the changes, detect the change here, and then shut down and then restart again. That is the basic idea with the reload. So this is the best method of running it, right? Even when you are deploying it, this is one of the best method of running it. Okay, now let's see how to add the machine learning aspect to it. So FastAPI comes with a lot of things. So with this little code I have created, if I come back to this place, I can just go back with /doc. If I go with /doc, I'm going to get the documentation, a Swagger documentation, which is very, very interesting, right? With this little code I've written, very, very cool, right? So it's loading the Swagger or Open API documentation, very interesting. And then I can see the various stuff. So I can have our get here, can see the various parameters, the various option. You can even try it out, then give us the option of executing something, right? Very, very interesting. And then there are a lot of things you can also do. So this is including Swagger itself, right? So in case you're using Flask, you'd have used Flask Swagger to enable us to do that, but FastAPI allows you to be able to do that to get in at once together with this little code, right? This little code is allowing us to be able to do all of these things. It's very interesting. And that's not the only thing. You can also check for the redoc. If I go with redocs, it's going to give us a very nice documentation. So there are two options. So we have the docs and we have the redoc, right? So it's going to load the redoc. It's going to be a very nice documentation, very interesting, and it's going to give us some interesting information about it. Very, very interesting, very simple. Cool. So now let's see how to add some other stuff to it. So first of all, let's see how to pass in argument. I'm just going to go to the same thing I have here. In case I want to pass in an argument, it's very simple. So it's very simple. So I can just copy this one and then let's paste it here, and then let's give it a different function. So this function, let's call it as, let's say, get item, right? So get items, right? Or get item, something very simple. And then we can paste it here. Let's paste something like, let's say, items or something else like items. Then I'll pass in the query argument that I want to use. So I can just pass in a name here. So let's give it as, let's say, name, right? Perfect. And then we just pass in the name here. So if I pass in the name here, you can actually define the particular data type, right? Wait, at this particular point by going with, let's say, string. Then it's going to identify that this particular stuff is only a string. That is one way of doing it. But let's go with the simplest method. Perfect. And then what we can do is that we can now pass in our name here, right? We can pass in the name option here. So let's go with our name. Perfect. So this is going to be test. Let's call it as name. Perfect. So something very basic. So if I save it now and I come back to here, right, we have our redoc. Even if I refresh the redoc, I'm going to see a whole new documentation for it. I'm going to detect the changes, detecting the changes that is made, right? Shutting down, detecting the changes. Then if I, even with the redoc, you can see that it's giving us some interesting information about it. Perfect. So it's going to give us our get itself, right? Then it's also going to give us the get items out of the box, right? We just this little code. We have got the get items API documentation with the requirement, which is name. Very, very interesting. And even you can see how to work on it. Something very simple, right? This is a route. Now if I go back to the docs, so let's go back to the docs here. It's going to be doc. It's going to give us the Swagger option, right? Which is very interesting and very cool. Loading the Swagger, it's giving us the first index, which is this place, as well as the get one. And then with the get, let me expand it. With the get option, you can do some interesting stuff. So I can just go with the get, and I'm going to see the various parameters I need to supply, the name that is required, and then some various interesting stuff, right, with the data type and description for the schema. So with here, I can even go with tryouts. Then I can pass in my value. So let's pass in a name like, let's say, Mac, right? So if I go with Mac and I go with execute, it's going to pass the Mac there. You can see that that's passed the Mac and the item here, and then you can see that that's passed it here also, and then that's given us inside our result body, and then very interesting, right? So that is something very cool about it. That's giving us our results here, right? Name is Mac. That is very, very interesting. So you can even run it with this particular option, right? The same option that you run here, you can run it there. So I can even come back to this place and then pass in my item. Then I'll pass in, let's say, Mac, right? If I go with Mac, it's going to give us the JSONified format. Very interesting. So let's change it from this option to something different, like let's say John. Then it's also going to change it and give us the John. Very, very interesting. So you can use it in several formats, right? So the user can either use it in this format, or the user can just go with the normal docs option, right? And then it's going to give the user the option of doing it in a simple way, right? That is very interesting and very cool. Simple stuff out of the box. Now let's see some other stuff you can also do, and it's about adding the machine learning aspect to it. So this is going to be our ML aspect. That's the main idea behind this. So it's going to be our ML aspect, right? So how do we do that? So let's first of all import joblib. So this is going to be our ML packages that we'll be using. So we're using import joblib. Joblib is not an ML package, but we're using to serialize our app, right? Our model that we have already saved in OS. So I'm just going to be using our famous model that you have been using, that is a gender classifier app, and be working on it. So I'm just going to go to our vectorizers, and then we're going to have our models also, right? That's the basic idea. So let's load our vectorizer. So I'm going to copy the models and put it inside the same location. So this is my models. So I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it here, right? So that it will be in the same place that we have. So our models is here, right? So we have all our models here. We have our gender classifier models, right? Perfect. So let's see how to work with it. So I'll just come back to where we are now here. Then I'm going to load our vectorizer. So it's going to be our gender vectorizer. Then I'll go with open. We'll be using open. Let me expand it so that you can see it well. Open, and I'm going to pass in my model. So it's going to be our model. So it's going to be our models slash. So we are going into this particular folder that we have, right? This is our models folder, and then we're going to go with our gender vectorizer dot pickle, right? That is the first stuff we'll be doing, and then we're going to open it as read byte. So it's going to be read byte. Perfect. That is all. Now the next thing we need to do is that we need to be able to load it, right? We have opened our file. Now let's load it inside a particular format. So we just go with gender and that's for CV. That's for our count vectorizer. Then I'm going to use joblib to load our stuff. So joblib dot load. I'm going to load our gender vectorizer. Right, perfect. That is all that we need. So we are done with it. So we have been able to create our vectorizer. Now let's work on our models. So it's going to be also something very simple. So gender, let's call this our NV or naive base, or let's call this NB model. And I'll pass in the same thing I did above. So which is going to be the same thing, right? It's going to be the same. So I'll just copy this one here. And I'm going to change this one to naive base, referring to this naive base here. So NV model, not vectorizer, but model. You are going to open the same file. Then from here I'm going to load it into my classifier. So gender CLF for our classifier. Then I'm going to use joblib to load our gender naive base model, right? Which is this. Very, very interesting, right? So we can let's make it the same so that it looks all the same. So NV, then this is going to be perfect, right? So we are done with it. So we are going to load our vectorizers, load our models. Now let's see how to use our models and then our vectorizers within our app in a very simple way. So the simplest way is that there are several aspects. You can use post or you can use get, right? Any of them is going to work. So let's first of all go with get. Then I'm going to go the route. So it's going to be predict, just like we have been doing always, right? And then I'm just going to pass in my argument, just as we did here, right? This same argument here. So the argument you are passing here is now we are going to be passing our name because we are classifying first name. Then I'm going to go with async. Then I'll pass in my function. So function is going to be predict, and then this function takes the argument of the name. Perfect. So now let's work on it. So we have our vectorized data. So let's go to our vectorized name. right? Then I'll pass in my gender classifier or gender count vectorizer to use it to transform our name, right, into vectors. So it's going to be transform, which I've been doing all the time. I'm going to pass inside a list, then to array. So to array, right? Perfect. So we are done with it. Now we have to send this particular vectorized name to our classifier. So let's call it as prediction, and it's going to be very simple. So it's going to be our gender classifier model dot predict, and I'll pass in my vectorized name. That is all that we need, right? Perfect. So we're going to be getting our result. So now I'm going to give it a simple condition. So if my prediction bracket 0, we're getting the first value is equal to 0. If that is the case, then I want you to say that my result is equal to female, right? So 0 is for female, and then male is for result is for 1, right? So result is equal to male, right? Something very basic. So we have been able to do something very simple. Now from here we can now return our result. So let's return it. So we're returning it here. Return, then we can pass in our original name. So let's put our original name, right? Which is going to be the name that we have, right? And then we're going to go with our prediction, which is going to be our prediction that we have, which is going to be our result. Something very basic. So we have been able to create a simple API. So the basic idea is that we are trying to do the same thing we have been doing all over again, but in this case we are using FastAPI. So let's see what we have done so far. So I'm just going to reload it. I'm going to identify the changes. So if I go back to the Redux, refresh it, hopefully not going to give us any errors. So finishing the server is going to restart. Now if I come back here, hopefully it's going to identify the changes. Perfect. So it has identified the changes, that's restarted. Now it has given us our prediction option, right? So we see that you can have our prediction route here also, right? So this is something very simple. So I can just go with the get, then I can open it here, and then I can see that you have our name here. Then I can try it out. So I can paste in the name here. So our famous name we have been using is Mary. Then I'll go with execute. It's going to analyze it and give us the prediction. So Mary was sent to this particular route. Mary was sent to this request URL, and then we got the original name as Mary, and then the prediction as female. Very, very interesting, right? So you can also do the same thing here. So I can just come back to the URL and go with predict /Mary. It's also going to work and give us the same result, right? So it's going to give us prediction, original name is Mary, prediction is female. Very, very interesting. You can also give it a name like, let's say, something different. So that is the basic idea, right, behind what you have done so far. So if I go with Mark, I hope Mark is male. Perfect. So Mark was given us as male. Very, very interesting. So our app is working well. If I come back to my Redux, I'm also going to get some interesting documentation, right, including what you have done so far. The new stuff we added is going to add those documentations to it in a very simple way. So you are just writing one simple code here, right, on one simple code, but you are getting all of these things out of the box. So you see that it's giving us our index, our get items, and our prediction route. If I click on the prediction, giving us the parameters that are required, the response, and then the various information about it. Very, very interesting and very, very intuitive with just simple code, right? That is the power of FastAPI. Now let's see another way. So this is for get, right? You can also do the same thing for post. So not just only get, but you can also do it for post. So I can just copy the same thing, and then let's go with post. Instead of the route for post, you're using post, right? The same option. If I go with post now, and then it's going to identify the changes. If I refresh it, it's going to give us two different options, right? One for the get and then one for the post. So let's go back here. It's identifying the changes. So it's finished server process. It's going to rerun it again and give us our result. So in a nutshell, the basic idea is that first of all, you're just going to import your normal packages, that is uvicorn and then FastAPI. Then you import, we do not even use this. You're going to import joblib, right, to load your models and your vectorizers, right? This is for our vectorizer and this is for our model, right? Then the next thing we need is that we are going to initialize our app. Then we're going to create our first route and our second route, which we just did to know something. And for the machine learning aspect, you can just follow through the same thing, right? This is something very basic. That is one of the ways of doing it. The other way is that you can also define a model. You can also define a class model, and then you just pass in your stuff, right? That is another way of doing it, which we will discuss later. So that is the basic idea, but this is the simplest method, right? Very, very interesting. So let's see our result now. So now if I come back and refresh again, refreshing, loading and redux. Perfect. So we have our index, get, and then post, right? And if I click on the post, it's going to give us a different result, right? And I can come back to the docs, and then it's also going to work for us. So this is the docs. Then I can see it loading. We have our get, post, and then I can click on the post, and I can also post a result. So try it out. Post in a name, which is J-Secur. I go with execute. It's also going to work, right? Both of them is going to work. So it's using this, what the result gives to us, using post, right? So you can use this particular option to get your result back. And then this is how it's getting, and you can also get the result here. So thank you for watching this tutorial. So in case you have any question or contribution, you can just put it inside the comment section below, and please don't forget to subscribe. Stay blessed. See you in the next session. Stay blessed.